All right, am I live this time? Is it actually going to work this time? Are we actually live this time? I'm just kidding. So if you're like watching the whatever of this, the saved copy to my channel, we've had a lot of technical difficulties tonight, but I think we're good to go this time. Like first, the sound was all messed up, and then my internet went out, but only to my computer, not to my phone. So confusing. And I think we're good to go now, but I'm going to check the sound on here. I also did a test stream before my internet went out to make sure that it was good to go. And it was, as far as the sound goes, audio, video stuff. But then my internet went out. But let's see what we've got here. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. One moment, please. Yes. Excellent. Yes. Excellent. Hey guys, I can hear myself. Excellent. Hey guys, dear God, what have I done? Oh shit. Oh, the more I talk about it, the more I mess it up. Oh shit. Oh no, what am I more talking? What's going on? Oh no. Oh, that was fun. Anyway. Okay, so wait, so it's definitely working. Anyway. Okay, so wait, so it's definitely working. Okay, good. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to start doing this every time I stream just to make sure that everything's working properly first, but you know, whatever. I'm gonna check Snapchat while I'm at it. Oh shit, I shouldn't have said that live, because never mind. You know, the thing with Snapchat is I don't want people thinking that I'm the type of person who wants to go around Snapchatting people all the time. Like, you know, I'm not interested in that. I'm only on there to follow well, one person really, although I follow 2 people or subscribe or whatever. Anyway, that's not the point. So looks like we've got everything working now. I'm gonna tweet this out. I'm gonna tweet that everything's working now. I wonder if I could link to the stream itself. Let me just see if I can do that. And hopefully people show up to this. They might be wondering. People might think that, see, people tried to join earlier, and they might just assume it's the same stream and that it's all messed up. So I don't know. Damn. Wonder if I could change the title. Maybe that would bring people here. Let's see if I can do that. So this is a very interesting sort of development. If you're rewatching this, I've said this on the previous streams, it didn't work, but or if you're watching the saved copy of this, go ahead and feel free to fast forward if you want until we get to the actual part of the stream after we get through all of these little issues or whatever. Let's see, edit title and description. I'll put in brackets, fixed now, 3 exclamation points. Fixed now, the emotional guidance skill and how to use it. Save. Okay. Now let me see if it'll let me bring up my own stream. All right, good. Might as well like my own stream. And we're going to share this to Twitter. And be like, difficulties have resolved, and I am here in my phone patches of my religion. tweet. It's very interesting that this is happening on the night that I decide to do a stream about the emotional guidance scale, something that's already sort of challenging enough to go over compared to my usual streams. Oh boy. All right. So that's good to go. Let me just see what this is like over here. It's very interesting that this is happening. Okay. Just making sure that everything is stable. Shouldn't be any more technical difficulties from here on out as far as I know, unless my internet goes out again. I can't control that. But as for the connection with my webcam, that should be completely secure now and for the whole stream. I know how this computer is sometimes, like sometimes that will happen. It's some weird thing about the USB port or something. But basically, to the best of my knowledge, once it's secure, it's secure and it's there to stay, you know, for that whole session or whatever. So, and probably for a lot longer than that. So anyway, without further ado, let's get on with things. Hopefully this isn't too scattered or whatever. But again, if you're rewatching this or whatever, you can always fast forward until we actually get started. So, just going to wait a little bit longer in the hopes that some people show up. And regardless if they do or not, we will get started here momentarily. We're talking about the emotional scale tonight. The emotional scale. Might as well check this one more time in here. Good, good. See, I'm afraid that people came here earlier and saw that it wasn't working, and then they just left, and now like they're not going to join this one. But if that's what happens, that's what happens. The show must go on. Just gonna wait a little bit longer. This isn't really that surprising for anyone who watches the saved copy of this, by the way, that no one's here yet, because I just started streaming recently, and it's not like I have some massive audience or whatever. And on top of what happened earlier, it would make sense if people weren't finding this right now. But whatever, you got to make do with what you've got. Maybe it can be a subject for the emotional scale. How about that? We will go over that tonight. It'll be quite apropos. So no, I talk more about this about the sort of irony of all this and everything, but I don't want to get ahead of myself, so I'll try to like save those thoughts for after I go over the main stuff about the emotional scale. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here at almost 11 minutes in, I think it's time for us to begin the main section of this. Those who watch the saved copy of this will benefit. Hopefully more people come in the meantime. Regardless, the show must go on. I'm Poetic Heretic, and I will not be silenced. All right. So at 11:11 now, let us officially begin. This is an in-depth look, what I hope to be an extensive look at the emotional scale and how to use it. As you can see from the title, I hope to present a practical and easily applicable way of utilizing this emotional guidance scale. We are all vibrational beings. We are all living in a vibrational universe. But most people don't even realize that we are vibrational beings, nor do they realize that we are living in a vibrational universe. Furthermore, they don't know. Most people don't really know what the first thing is about raising one's vibration, about changing one's vibration, about what a vibration even is. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what a vibration is. The vibration that you are in is, you could say, like the frequency that you're on. And the frequency that you're on will determine what you receive back to you, just like a radio frequency, just like a radio broadcast. So when you think a specific thought, either at one time or especially on a regular basis, when you're thinking that thought is going to affect what vibration you're in. In fact, the thoughts that you think regularly largely determine the vibration that you're in. In fact, the thoughts that you're thinking regularly completely, perhaps even, determine the vibration that you are in. And so, how can you tell what vibration you're in? A lot of people may wonder. You can tell what vibration you're in by the way you feel, by your emotions. Your emotions are your indicator of what vibration you are in. It feels so weird explaining all this stuff for a second time tonight because I explained it earlier, but it was cut off. But that was a manifestation of the vibration I was in. So why would someone like me be in a vibration like that? What thoughts was I thinking that led to that kind of unwanted manifestation? Well, they were probably thoughts of frustration, of limitation, of things not quite going the way I want them to go, of having to deal with things that I can't quite control, having to put up with things. Now, even myself, Poetic Heretic, and all of my spiritual knowledge, that's supposed to be a bit of an exaggeration or sarcasm or funny or whatever. But yes, even with this awareness that I have, even I can still very often, surprisingly, think thoughts that are not a vibrational match to what I want. I can think thoughts that are not in a frequency that I prefer. And as I do recall from just earlier today, I had some thoughts of frustration as I was trying to set everything up for the stream, essentially, and make my other daily preparations, I suppose. So the smart thing to do in that situation is to do something about your vibration, to raise your vibration, to move up the emotional scale. But how do you actually do that? I find a lot of people don't really know how to do that. And for people who have even heard about this, like spiritual stuff, or have become curious about it or whatever, they still seem to have this rather nebulous idea, a really cloudy understanding of vibration and how to shift one's vibration. So what I'm going to attempt to present here, and hopefully we have a good time doing it, though I admit it would certainly be more fun if more people show up, but maybe I'll move up the emotional scale about this very topic and then more people will, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. What we have here is the emotional guidance scale that was invented by Abraham Hicks, and it looks like this. Give my webcam some time to focus. Now you can find this for yourself with a simple Google search. Just search emotional guidance scale, and this and other variations of it will come right up. So you notice there are two sides to the scale, and this is where things get very interesting, because you could be vibrating around boredom or pessimism, or perhaps even boredom, as you can see at the top of the negative side of the emotional guidance scale. And if you focus there and you don't do anything to clean that up, that vibration will gain momentum. And before you know it, you will be sucked down into, say, frustration or maybe overwhelmment. And if you don't do anything about that, you will drop down further into discouragement, into anger, into revenge. And if you still don't do anything about it, you'll be sucked all the way down into powerlessness, despair, depression, etc. Because every vibration that you're in gains momentum. Now, on the positive side of the scale, you could start out at the very bottom in contentment, which is also like a feeling of satisfaction. And if you focus there and you don't do anything to mess it up, that vibration will gain momentum until you find yourself rising into a state of hope or optimism, positive expectation or belief, enthusiasm, passion, and finally, joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, love, appreciation, which is basically, I think at least this scale and the philosophy behind it would argue is, or would suggest is the same as enlightenment. So how do you actually use this on a practical level? You use it by first determining where you are on the scale. Now, we're blurry. Let's think of the best way to describe this. One way to do it, if you're not really sure where you are, is you can start off by being like, is the feeling that I have now more like empowerment or powerlessness? And if it's more like powerlessness, you can say, is the feeling that I have now more like powerlessness or frustration? And if you say it's more like frustration, you can be like, is the feeling I'm having now more like frustration or anger? And if you say it's more like anger, then you can just keep zeroing in on it on the scale until you figure out more or less where you are. But you see, the thing is, different people have different emotional words for the same emotions and different emotions, you know. Everyone thinks of emotion in sort of their own way. And so it's not so much important the word that you're using as it is that you identify more or less where you are on the scale, and that you are then able to reach for a feeling of relief. But how do you reach for a feeling of relief? That is the next part of this unfolding. If you're in despair or depression, usually the highest vibration you can reach for is revenge. And so you'd want to reach for thoughts of revenge. And that might really shock some people, and yet that is the path of least resistance from a place of despair or depression. And so my strong advice is that you do not act on your revenge. Don't act on your revenge. Don't break anything. Don't hurt anyone. Simply reach for thoughts of revenge. And when you stabilize there, move up to the next level, which is anger. Generally speaking, that's where people go after revenge. Reach for thoughts of anger. Once you stabilize in anger, you can usually reach for and find thoughts of frustration. So reach for and find thoughts of frustration. And once you stabilize there, then you can shift over into the positive side of the scale and reach for thoughts of hope. And once you stabilize in hope, you can often move all the way up into appreciation, love, joy, etc., etc. Now, if you're dealing with a particularly stubborn vibration or issue or whatever, you notice there's many different levels of the scale. Well, you can stop at as many of those levels as you need to on your way up the emotional vibrational scale. And so that's essentially what I suggest. Now, if we are fortunate enough tonight to gain an audience, as all my other streams have so far, if people would like, who are watching this live later on, or hopefully very soon, if they would like, I'll ask the audience to share some experiences or challenges of their own that we can then move up this emotional vibrational scale on. But in the meantime, that is more or less my summary. So I think at this point, what I'm going to do is, there's still no one here. Go figure. Everyone saw what happened earlier, and now they think that the stream's broken, so they won't show up. But you know, whatever. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to wait a little while longer and see if anyone else shows up, and whether someone does or not, I'll continue with this presentation for anyone who may watch the saved version of this on my channel. So if that's happening right now, you might want to fast forward. If you're watching this when I'm not live, you might want to fast forward at this point. Are things still working properly? Are things still working properly? Are Okay, so yes, they're working properly. I just felt like messing around. So, still going to wait just a little bit longer, see if we get any more viewers. Hang on a second. There's one more thing I wanted to do. Okay, never mind. I already did it. Yes, everyone literally saw the broken stream earlier. And now they don't realize what's going on. Ah, Ryan, thank the gods someone is here. YouTube didn't notify you. Well, you see what happened is, fixing the blurriness, we had technical difficulties earlier, and I had to restart the stream several times before I got it to work correctly. But I identified the problem, and now things have essentially been corrected. But I think what happened is people saw that the previous stream was broken. My audio was all messed up. And so when I restarted the stream, they assumed that it was still messed up and decided not to show up. Either that, or maybe YouTube didn't notify them after notifying them once or something. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I just hope that more people show up, because I have a very interesting, well, what I think is a very interesting show planned tonight. Huh, that is very odd. Not a single notification. That is very strange. Yeah, I guess I'm not surprised that YouTube glitches like that from time to time. But, well, hopefully now that you've shown up, maybe some more people will show up. But regardless, I'll get right back into the subject matter here in just a bit. Just gonna kind of see what else happens, or see if anyone else shows up. I feel like there's something else I was gonna do. Yeah, it probably does, unfortunately, being a smaller channel. But oh well, hopefully that'll change one of these days. I also sent out a tweet about it, but you know, not really that many people follow me on Twitter. I wonder if I should Instagram it or something. How could I Instagram it? Let's see if I can find a way to do this. Oh yeah, feel free to. I mean, I don't really use Instagram a whole lot, but I have two. One is poetic_heretic. That's like my personal one, I guess. And the other is just poetic heretic with no underscore. And that's the one that is kind of devoted to my YouTube channel. Oh yeah, I could do that. I was thinking, I've never done a story on Instagram before, but I could maybe try to do that. Let me think here. Yeah, I think I'm just going to try that. If it doesn't work, I just won't post it. Okay, open camera. Let's see if this works. Hey everyone, I am live on YouTube right now, and apparently didn't notify people, so please come watch youtube.com/poetic_heretic90. See, I'm live, I'm live. Hey everyone, I am live on YouTube right now, and apparently didn't notify people, so please come watch youtube.com/poetic_heretic90. See, I'm live, I'm live. Oh my god. Hey everyone, I am live on YouTube right now, and apparently didn't notify people, so please come watch youtube.com/poetic_heretic90. See, I'm live. Okay, cool. Now how do I actually make this a story? Hey everyone. Stardust playing in the background. Oh cool, yeah, that movie that I need to see. What is this? Introducing your stories archive. Okay, cool. Is it working? Not sure what's happening. I hope this isn't boring for people. We're gonna get started soon, I promise, or sort of resume, I guess. I think it worked. Wait. Let me switch to my other Instagram and see if I can watch it from there. That'll be the real test. I am live on YouTube right now and apparently didn't notify people, so please come watch youtube.com/poeticheretic90. See, I'm live. Alright, cool. It worked. Sweet. Okay, well, this hoodie's getting a little too warm, so I'm gonna take it off and I'll come back. Jones Soda, huh? I don't know if I've ever had one of those actually. All right, just to avoid any other potential interruptions though, I'm going to use the bathroom before I actually begin here, and I'm going to say this in the chat in case people show up. I'll be like, I will be right back. Okay. And I'm not going to mute my microphone this time because I guess I don't really need to. All right, guys, I'm back. How did you know I went fishing? That's amazing. You know what? Real quick, I'm also going to post this to my Instagram because we need people to show up. Or, well, I would like if people showed up. So I have a very interesting, what I think is a very interesting show planned tonight. And I was sort of just getting started, so you haven't really missed too much. I was just making like opening remarks or whatever. So let me just do this real quick. I'm not going to do it this way. Yes, it was rather fast. I try to be a speedy person. when possible. How should I even do this? I'm gonna include you guys in the chat, like in this post, basically. Wait. Okay. Star-Lord, yes, I do remember you. Yes, I'm surprised I didn't recognize your name right away. Like, I didn't focus on it enough. Yeah, it's great to have you here. We're gonna get started with this here in just a moment, as soon as I post this to my Instagram. Why am I even doing it this way? Share this to Instagram. Yes, we're going to be talking about the emotional guidance scale, what I believe is a very interesting subject. Let's see. This will have to do. I'll probably just delete this after the stream's over, though, so it can be whatever for now. Live on Not Love, live on YouTube right now. YouTube.com/poetic heretic. Live on YouTube right now, youtube.com/poetic heretic 90. Okay, gonna share that. That's okay if you have to go. I appreciate your just coming here. That's very nice of you. I'm not sure how many people are actually even aware that I'm doing these live streams now I think about it, but I guess that just went out to 5,852 followers. I guess that's how many I have on my one Instagram now. So hopefully some people show up. I don't know. I don't know if people actually really watch my or pay attention to my Instagram posts or not, but we'll see. Maybe like 1 or 2 more people might appear. Anyway, so I'm going to attempt to explain this, sort of what I talked about earlier again, but I'm not like earlier in the stream before anyone showed up, but I'm not going to get quite as in depth. I'll just kind of give you the gist of it. So I'm presenting the emotional scale tonight, an in-depth look at it. Let me grab a sip of my energy drink. And it has to do with vibration. It has to do with the idea that we are all vibrational beings, that we live in a vibrational universe, and that the vibration that we are in determines what we attract into our lives. And the emotional scale is a practical way of shifting one's vibration, a very like real, applicable method of shifting one's vibration. And so I'm going to go back over this here. I should have a picture of it that I will show again here. This is what it looks like. And as you can see, there are 2 sides to it, a positive and negative side. This is one of the most heavy-duty processes for situations that are situations or challenges that are the most extreme in life. However, it can also be used for just about anything, really, just about any challenge. And it's certainly one of the most effective processes that I've ever come across. And let's see. not having that I'm digging it teach away. I'm glad you are enjoying it. So indeed, this is one of the most heavy-duty processes, one of the most effective ones I've come across. And there's a couple different ways to explain it. So I'm just going to explain it in the way that I think of it most these days. So you could start out with a feeling of pessimism or maybe even boredom. And if you focus there long enough, that vibration will gain momentum. And you might find yourself, or you likely will find yourself at that point, sort of sucked down into thoughts of frustration or thoughts and feelings of frustration. And then if you don't do anything about it, you'll be, the momentum will increase and you'll go further down the scale into thoughts and feelings like anger and then revenge. And eventually, if you still don't do anything about it, down into the depths of powerlessness and despair. On the flip side of that, you could be in a feeling of contentment or satisfaction, which hopefully, and what I'm certainly advocating tonight, is that you deliberately focus yourself into, but we'll get to that later. You could be in a feeling of contentment or satisfaction and hold yourself there. And if you don't do anything to mess it up, you will find that momentum increase and you'll reach from there hope, then optimism, then eagerness or enthusiasm, positive expectation, and then passion, and then all the way up into joy, love, freedom, appreciation, enlightenment, things like that. And so the objective here, basically speaking, is to jump levels up the scale. And it's so funny that this has happened, that the technical difficulties that I had earlier happened tonight, and like all this, weird stuff happened and my internet went out and just a bunch of crazy stuff when I'm talking about this tonight, because we're talking about attraction and we're talking about manifestation. And I can recall, and I mean, I can literally use this as an example. I can recall that earlier tonight, or tonight and like into earlier in the day, I was thinking some thoughts of frustration, of things that I have to like sort of put up with. And I could have tried to clean that up right then and there, but I was busy. I wanted to get ready for my day. And so like many people, I didn't clean it up. I just kind of tried to get on with my day and hoped that it wouldn't manifest into anything unwanted. And then tonight, well, we had many technical difficulties and challenges with this very stream. And so I think it's kind of ironic, but also quite appropriate. Now, I'm not saying that that was definitely, absolutely a manifestation of that. It might just be more how I've been thinking chronically on a more long-term basis than that, or at least somewhat more long-term basis than that. But I am saying that I wouldn't be surprised if that was a manifestation of that earlier frustration. And I'm also saying that one way or another, my thoughts created this. So I need a sip. So, or you can just sleep. Wait, what do you mean? Well, sleeping does stop momentum, and every time you start a new day, you get to start momentum anew, and so that's certainly very helpful. But what I'm talking about in this process, and what this process is advocating, is that if you find yourself, or I shouldn't even use those words, if you create a situation for yourself where you are in, say, fear or despair, which we can't quite see here. There we go. Obviously, ideally, you would want to make the jump all the way to joy, freedom, love, all that stuff. But you can't do that. Normally from a place of despair, you can only reach as high as revenge. And I'm certainly not advocating acting on revenge, but I am advocating reaching for thoughts of revenge if those give you relief from a place of powerlessness. And then from revenge, you can jump some more levels up the scale, usually frustration. Once you stabilize in frustration, you can usually reach for thoughts of hope. Once you stabilize there, you can usually get all the way up into joy, love, appreciation, all this stuff. So I said like all that in the opening stuff when no one was here yet. And I'm not sure if I said it after that either. I don't even know how many times I'm repeating myself. When you get bored, you don't need to get angry or frustrated. You always just sleep it off. That is very wise advice, actually. That is very wise advice, Star-Lord. Like before the momentum increases, if you can go to sleep, your slumber is highly beneficial to you for that reason, in that it stops momentum and it gives you a chance when you awaken to start momentum anew, which maybe we can talk about later. But so, what I was thinking earlier, if you guys want to, is, hey there, Panic, or Asher, you told me your name recently. So glad that you're here. And don't worry, it's okay that you're late. We're just going over the emotional guidance scale. But so, what I was thinking earlier, and my mind feels a little bit more scattered now because of the technical difficulties with the stream and everything, but whatever, hopefully this goes well, is that if you guys would like, you could give me challenges or issues from your own lives, and I could show you how to strategically move up the emotional scale on those subjects. And again, why would anyone want to do this? Because when you can move up the emotional scale and produce that feeling of relief, that feeling of the weight off your shoulders, and then greater and greater positive emotion. The positive emotion is your indicator of the vibration that you're in, and increased positive emotion is an indicator of an increased vibration, which means that everything that you attract into your life is going to be improved. So to put this very simply, the higher you go on the scale, the better your life gets. The more subjects that you move to a higher or better feeling place on the scale, the better your life gets. And so perhaps, well, we'll see how this goes. Perhaps I could give an example of my own and show you what I mean. Or if you guys really want to dig in with examples, we can do that. Let's see what you guys are talking about. Cool. So let's see here. Well, first of all, do you understand the basic concept so far, everyone? Like, would you say that you understand it, or do you have questions about what we've gone over so far? Just give you guys a bit. Okay, yeah, Panic, yeah, you just got here, so it might be a little bit tricky, but I think you'll catch on. I think you'll catch on as we go. Okay, Star-Lord, you understand? Okay, well, I'm going to give an example from basically what happened earlier tonight with this stream being, so frustrating. I think I get it. Will this be on the final exam? Yes, it will, sir. So you better pay attention, take your notes, class is in session. Got to get this shit right or you fail. I'm just kidding. Even if I did have a class, I don't think you could fail it. It would be impossible by its very nature. So, okay. So, hang on. I'm going to show the scale one more time. And also, if you guys want, you can just Google emotional guidance scale, and I'm gonna type that into the chat to make it easier, and you can look at this yourself. Google emotional guidance scale to see it for yourself. Okay. Or you can just sort of look on my tablet here. So I wouldn't say that I was all the way down at the very bottom of the negative side of the scale in fear, depression, worry, and all that stuff. I have no idea if it's going to focus or not. But, you know, I don't think I was all the way down there when the stream wasn't working out so well for me. But just for the sake of this example, I'm going to pretend that I was. And I'm going to show you how I personally would move up this emotional scale on that subject in order to improve my vibration and hopefully prevent anything like that from ever happening again. But it's not about preventing what you don't want. It's about releasing resistance so that you then become more of a match vibrationally to what you do want. And if this sounds confusing, just bear with me. It'll become more and more clear over time. So let's see. Wait, when you get super hungry but you're too lazy to do anything, and then because you're hungry you get moody and that leads to anger. Being hangry. That's an interesting example. I wonder where that would go on the scale. Maybe we can try to flesh that out later. But so anyway, so let's say I was feeling despair about the stream having so many technical difficulties earlier. I wasn't. It was really just more frustration for me. Maybe a little, I don't know, disappointment. But let's just say I was feeling despair about that. From my place of despair, I would start reaching for thoughts of revenge. I would think, damn, I sure would like to punish someone for effing up my stream, you know. I sure would like to just take this out on someone or something. Again, think these thoughts, do not actually follow through with the action. Do not, I repeat, do not act on your revenge. At least, I mean, that's my advice. I mean, I can't control you, but that's my advice. And you're on the right track, Star-Lord, but not quite. We're not actually to blame yet. But for revenge, you almost have to blame someone. But more like not just wanting to blame someone here, but wanting to get back at someone, wanting to wanting to fight a battle so that you regain some of your power. Exactly, Ryan, exactly. So a lot of people, you know, they don't want to hear this. They think, wait, revenge is the right path, the right answer, and indeed blaming our issues on other people. Like, how can that be the right answer? Well, stick with me long enough and you'll see. So from that place of revenge and thinking thoughts of revenge, what I would go to next if I was in that situation is anger. I would say it just makes me so mad that my stream didn't work out, or it makes me so mad that I had this wonderful, what I think is a wonderful idea, this stuff I was going to present to people, and now it's getting all messed up by all these technical difficulties I can't control. You know, something with my computer, the USB connection. It's like, it just makes me so mad that this isn't working out for me. Now, once you sort of stabilize in anger, or once I stabilized in anger in this example, this is when I would reach for blame. Like a lot of times you could go right from anger up into frustration, but I find that blame is a convenient place to stop along the way. So Indeed, at this point, I would say, you know what? It's my damn computer and whoever designed it. They weren't doing a good job. They must have messed up the USB port or something to do with the audio video processing, and that messed things up. And then when my internet went out, I'd be like, well, my damn internet service provider, they can't get anything right, you know, Comcast, the internet's always going out. You know, there's a lot of stuff that people can get going on when it comes to blame. It's very funny. But you see, a lot of quote unquote spiritual people don't want to hear this, but this can be useful. You see, this can blame, anger, all kinds of negative emotions can be used in a positive way by reaching for less and less and less negative emotions, moving up the scale incrementally, since you can't do it all at once. You know, the vibration you're in won't let you reach very far, so you have to do it incrementally. You have to do it in steps, basically. Get revenge on Google. Exactly. You know, like Google, what the hell? So, but yeah, so once you kind of stabilize and blame, you know, be like, oh, it's the computer's fault, it's the manufacturer's fault, it's whoever's fault. Or like if I was doing this, then I would probably reach for disappointment. And I'd be like, damn, you know, I'm just so disappointed that my stream didn't work right from the start. I'm so disappointed that I gave this whole like 15-minute speech and now no one will ever get to see it. No one will ever get to see it or hear it because the audio was all garbled and, you know, you couldn't understand anything. And you know, I had to make the video private because of that. I'd be like, I'm just so disappointed that this didn't turn out well. Now, once you stabilize in disappointment, on up into frustration. So I'd be like, I'm just so frustrated with all of this. I'm so frustrated that this stuff isn't working. I'm impatient. Like the vibration, generally speaking, of frustration, impatience, irritation, and annoyance are all pretty much the same. So you could be like, I'm just annoyed as hell with all this. I'm irritated that I started a stream earlier and then it didn't work out properly. It's just annoying like that would happen to me. It's like, you know, kind of these thoughts of, oh, that would happen, or, oh, there's always some issue or whatever. But now, from your place of frustration or irritation, impatience, annoyance, most of the time when you stabilize there, you can start to feel a feeling of hope. And so in this example, I would say, well, hopefully this happened for a reason. You've got to go now, Star-Lord. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good night. I hope that this isn't too confusing or whatever. Thanks. I'm glad you like it. And thanks so much for being here. It's been really cool having you. I do hope to see you again. So, but indeed, when you stabilize in frustration, irritation, etc., you can then reach for hope, and you can say, well, hopefully this all happened for a reason. Hopefully it wasn't the right time. You know, you can start to look for ways that maybe it's working out for you. You can be like, well, maybe it wasn't a good time for people, and so maybe it's better that I started the real stream later. Maybe it's better because this led me to posting about it on Instagram, and I never would have thought of that, or that never would have like occurred to me if it hadn't happened in this way. You know, hopefully this turns out to be a much better stream. Hopefully the experience of the malfunction will cause me to do better in the future, you know? And then you could be like, oh, well, in the future, I'll make sure to do a test stream first. I'll make sure to check it on my phone first. I'll make sure that everything is in working order first before I start talking so much. And so now you're not even just in this feeling of hope, you're starting to move into a bit of optimism and maybe even a bit of enthusiasm or eagerness. And so at this point, generally speaking, you can go right up into appreciation and stuff like that. And so if I was doing this personally, I would say, you know what? Regardless of what happens, I love live streaming. I love the feeling of getting to share my thoughts with people. I love interacting with my viewers. I love providing something that is hopefully of value and benefit to others. I love that blissful feeling of just relaxing and allowing things. I'm so happy that I have this opportunity. I'm so filled with appreciation that I still get to do a stream at all. I'm so happy that this worked out. I'm so adoring this whole process and this whole unfolding. And I love the fact that if I didn't know what I don't want, I couldn't know so clearly what I do want. And I love how this sharpened my focus and awareness of what I do want and my appreciation of my live streams and my deep, intense appreciation of when they work out really well. I so love being able to do what I do. I so love interacting with viewers. I so love all of it. And that's how you move up the emotional scale. So, what are you guys talking about? Yes, reasoning is definitely part of it. And just looking forward to relaxing tonight. Yeah, and that's another good statement to make. I don't know if you're commenting sort of on what I was saying or like also on other stuff, but I'm glad to be here too, obviously, from that example. So is this making some sense to you guys? You probably did. Probably were in a hopeful state. Let's see if there's one other thing I was going to say. Oh, just that, keep in mind, again, the reason that this process is so effective is because from whatever vibration you're already in, you only have access to a certain range that is near that vibration, right? So you can't just jump from despair all the way up to bliss because it's too high of a jump, you know? Like, basically, I almost hesitate to use the term because so many people seem to have a misunderstanding of this, but law of attraction, which rules this universe, which is one of the most, if not the most powerful law in this universe, is ensuring that only like vibrations are being brought together, like and very similar close vibrations are being brought together. So you have to work with this law and not against it. You know, you're never ever going to experience a quantum leap of despair to joy, at least not to my knowledge. I've never seen it happen. I don't expect to ever see it happen. So, but you see, the thing is, wherever you are on the emotional scale, wherever you are vibrationally, that inner being or source energy or whatever you want to call it, part of yourself is always calling you to the highest frequency that you can get to, always calling you to your natural state, which is one of joy and bliss. And so this comes back to this idea that I've talked about before a lot, of following your bliss. And one way of putting this is, when you're in a place of despair or fear or powerlessness or depression, guess what the call of that bliss sounds like? Guess what that bliss sounds like and feels like? Usually revenge. Revenge. Something that so many people will advise you against is actually, in that situation, the path of least resistance. Again, not acting on your revenge, but thinking thoughts of revenge is the path of least resistance in that situation. From your revenge, that call of your bliss will sound like anger. And then from anger, frustration. From frustration, hope. From hope, you can usually jump all the way up into love, freedom, appreciation, stuff like that. Now, for particularly stubborn issues or challenges, you notice there's many different levels of the emotional scale. You can stop at, like, simply put, the better stuff you will attract into your life. So that's my main message there. So if you guys would like, at this point, if you want to offer me some examples, I can of challenges in your own life, I can help you with that, or you can ask me questions about this, or I can just kind of keep talking more in depth about this. So I'm just going to kind of let you guys respond while I glance at my phone. I'm glad people liked my post. I did not feel so much anxiety when it comes to seeing extended family members. Oh, okay. That should be an interesting example. So anxiety. So does that anxiety to you feel more like fear or frustration? We're going to zero in on it. Because if it feels more like fear, then we would indeed be starting at the very bottom of the negative side of the emotional scale. But if it feels like frustration, we can start almost right in the middle. More frustration because I don't feel like I can relate to my family nor have much to say. Okay. Does it feel more like frustration or worry? This is where we zero in on the precise location on the emotional scale, and then we start jumping the levels. I feel like I'm sharing a bunch of secret knowledge to my YouTube audience here. A bunch of secret occult knowledge. Worried about being judged. Okay, so that's a good place to start. So blurry. Maybe this will make it unblurry. Hang on. All right, so I'm gonna see if I can sort of do this. Like if this was if I was sort of consulting someone in person right now, I would I'd try to have you do it, but you know, since this is like over a chat or whatever, that would kind of be inefficient. So I'm going to just sort of demonstrate. So if we started in a place of worry, and you're worried about being judged, worried about seeing the family members, you would talk about that a little bit, and you'd say like, I'm worried about being judged. I'm worried about what they think of me. I'm worried about things not being completely secure. And you just kind of stabilize there. And then you might want to from there, jump up into overwhelmment, which is, I think, kind of a made-up word, or a complete made-up word, perhaps, but this feeling of being overwhelmed. And you might say things like, there's so many family members that I have to contend with. There's so much I don't know. There's so many unwanted things that could go wrong. There's so many things that I feel like I have to worry about. There's so much that I feel like I could be judged about. There's too much to deal with. There's too much to think about. There's too much to even contemplate, and it's driving me crazy. And then you start to sort of move up into frustration. And you could be like, it's just so annoying that I have to deal with this in the first place. It's just so annoying and irritating that I have to deal with this, and there sort of seems to be no way out of it. And again, I might be putting words in your mouth. I don't know. I'm just using this as an example, but it's like you could say, I'm sick of how this always happens. I'm irritated with this constant tendency every time I see them. It's just so annoying as hell. And if you're feeling significant movement, I would say at this point, jump up to hope. If you're not feeling significant movement, then you might want to stop at, say, pessimism. You might want to say, I don't know if this is ever going to get better. So far, you're doing rather well, honestly. Huh? Okay, good. Let me know also if you can, as I'm talking, and again, this is difficult to do over a live show. It'd be much easier. Like it is much easier when I explain this to people in person. But let me know if you can, as I'm talking, if you're feeling any sense of relief, because the whole idea, the whole goal of this process is to feel relief and to raise yourself as high on the emotional scale as you possibly can. And sometimes you're only going to be able to sort of make it to hope or hopefulness, as it puts it on the scale. Other times you might only reach frustration. Other times, if you're starting from fear or despair, you might only reach anger, and you just have to kind of leave it there for a while. It really depends on the situation, but a lot of times you can take it all the way home into love, appreciation, freedom, etc. So from that place of frustration, once you sort of stabilize there, if you can reach for hope, you might start saying things like, well, maybe it won't be so bad. Maybe I'm starting to get a bit of a handle on this. Maybe seeing these people is not as bad as I'm making it out to be. The last time, and again, I'm just sort of, I don't know your situation, but I'm just sort of guessing for the sake of the example here. You could say, well, last time, maybe there were some that seemed to judge me, but there are others that were very accepting of me. Maybe they're becoming more and more accepting of me overall, and less judging as time goes on. I might not know that for sure, but it just seems to be the natural way of things, especially when family bonds are so strong that people really want to love each other and not hate each other or judge each other or whatever. And so maybe they will be more accepting this time. And then you might think thoughts like, well, at the same time, even if they're not accepting, maybe it doesn't really bother me the way that it used to. In fact, as I'm starting to feel my power again by using this very process, maybe it's just not even going to affect me if they judge me, because now I'm regaining a measure of control. I'm regaining some of my power. And the more power I regain, the more power I feel. And the more power I feel, the more power I regain. and the more power I regain, etc., etc., etc. And so now you might start feeling some enthusiasm, some optimism creeping up, and you might say, you know what? I bet that with some deliberate effort, some deliberate focus, I can take much greater control of my vibration, and I can maybe get myself to a point where I just kind of don't care what anyone thinks of me. And I'm already really good at that when it comes to a lot of people not caring what they think of me. So why should it be any different with these people just because they're extended family members, just because I know them better, just because? It doesn't matter. I don't need to care what anyone thinks of me. I only need to care what I think of me. The only person whose opinion I need to be concerned with is my own. The only opinion I need to be concerned with is the call of my inner bliss. And now you can feel, if you're sort of resonating with this, that it's going from enthusiasm to positive expectation and like belief in yourself and maybe even passion. And if you can really take it all the way home, you'd be like, I know that I can do this. I believe that I can do this. I believe that I am powerful. I believe that I am the one in control. I believe that I know how to do this. I believe that I can find my stability. And I love how it feels to find this stability. I love reaching for a better feeling. I love the power that comes with this process. And I also love and appreciate my family members. And sure, there's sometimes that is easier than others, and sometimes they're not as lovable as other times. But generally speaking, I really love my family and I want to appreciate my family. And I think I'm going to just practice as many thoughts of appreciation of them as I possibly can until I stabilize there. And if you keep going with this and take it all the way home, your vibration will have shifted like crazy. And the next time that you're in that actual experience where you have to encounter extended family members, the results will be different, I guarantee you. So let's see. For example, I already, in a way, came out, if you want to use that term, to my coworkers about my choice of religion. I even carry my Satanic Temple membership card in my wallet. Cool. So yeah, so you know, you want to use stuff like that. Use anything you can think of. This light beside me is turning on automatically. That's weird. Use anything you can think of to amplify your power, you know, to lift yourself up higher on the emotional scale. There's that fear of letting my family members know, or they just happen to walk into my place one day and they're my memorabilia. Yes. Well, the emotional guidance scale is one of many processes that I have come across over the years that I use personally. And when I first started really doing this vibrational work, it was one of my favorites once I really got the hang of it, because it is so powerful. But certainly, even though this is a presentation about the emotional guidance scale, you know, whatever you and anyone else that watches this brings up is happening for a reason. And so we can go over numerous ways as a sort of addition to this presentation of how to shift your vibration and reclaim your power. Because here's a very important thing I want to say about all of this. I am all about empowerment. I am all about gaining power, what could be called spiritual power, the power that comes with learning how to create my own reality, with gaining creative control over my reality. And I'm also all about teaching other people how to find their power, how to gain their power over their reality, so to speak. I am interested in finding my own power, and I'm interested in helping you find your own power. That's what I'm interested in, power. But again, not to hoard all to myself, as if I ever could when it comes to true power, but to find my own power and share that with as many people as possible. And indeed, let me say, we're not talking about power over anyone or anything. We're talking about power in the sense of having creative control over your own reality, or of your own reality, by strategically utilizing the laws, the natural laws of the universe. That's what we're talking about here. I have worked on this stuff for close to 6 years now. I've done all kinds of processes and experiments with it and stuff like that, and I know that it works. So take it from me. This power is real, and you can gain it and use it for yourself. In fact, it's the most natural thing in the world, truly, as mysterious as it might sound to people. But anyway, as for where we take this next, it's really up to you guys. Do you have any questions, or Ryan, would you like me to perhaps dig into what you just described just now? Maybe we could see if we could sort of help you shift with that. Having that happen would be my main fear or worry. So having your extended family discover the memorabilia, basically. Let me make some observations. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, there's a whole nother section of this emotional scale stuff that we can get into. But now that we've gone over the main parts of it, I want to take it where I want to take it, but I also want to take it where you guys want to take it, because I've already taken it largely where I want to take it, so I want to give you guys a chance. Also, I feel like people watching this in the future could relate to my example. I think we all have something we are worried about being discovered when they're not ready to share that. That is very true. That is sort of a common issue. Well, let's see. Let's tackle this idea then real quick. Also, I guess I have this only in top chat. I should click live chat. I often forget to do that, but so this idea of someone discovering something about me that I don't want them to know, at least not yet, or that I'm afraid for them to know, or something like that. So one way to find clarity on any challenging subject is to first go general about it. And this ties in a very interesting way to the emotional scale, and in a way that I hope to describe accurately. So when you have a situation like that, it is indeed one where you're like, there's something about me that I believe if someone or some group of people discovers, it will be uncomfortable for me, or that they're not ready to know yet, or I'm not ready for them to know yet. Sort of an unwanted discovery. And so, let me think here. There's a couple of different directions we could go here. We could go general, we could look at beliefs. We could even dig back into the emotional scale. I'm trying to figure out what I think would be the best one. If I was in that situation, I would say, well, whatever is discovered or not discovered about me by other people is completely and totally a result of my vibration. So again, it comes back to the vibration that you are in, all this vibrational stuff. And flip a coin. That's one way that is effective when situations are difficult in deciding like that. But yes, I would say it's the vibration I'm in. I would say having a fear of an unwanted discovery, because that's really what this is, an unwanted discovery, is unfortunately, now don't panic, a match to that unwanted discovery happening, manifesting. Having a fear of anything is a match to that manifesting. Now, fortunately, because, how do I put this? Because the well-being is so dominant on this planet, and because I would also say that positive thoughts are so much more powerful than negative thoughts, you have to really, really get going on a lot of negative thoughts before something negative finally manifests. However, if you keep thinking that thought over and over again, I don't want this to be discovered, 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 it's been discovered. That is literally what is likely to happen. So now you're probably thinking, okay, so what you're telling me is I'm doomed, and I'm in a, like, now what am I going to do? I'm in a place of despair. And I say, no, you're not doomed. Because even though the laws of the universe make it difficult to move from where you are, or very far from where you are, again, you can move incrementally. And so what I would advise in a situation like that is, first of all, if you can, and different things are going to work for different people, but what I would advise primarily, this would be the most effective, I believe, if you can accomplish it, is surrender to the idea and the possibility of this unwanted discovery actually manifesting. So the way I would do that is, first of all, I'd put my attention completely in the present moment, right here, right now. Become very aware of things right here, right now. Hopefully my cadence of speech is making it easier. And then I would say, think of your fear of this unwanted discovery. Imagine it happening and try to surrender to that. Try to adopt an attitude of, if it happens, it happens. If it happens, I can't control it. I might as well just give into it. And even you can use the feeling of fear or worry or anxiety as a sort of portal in and of itself. You can focus on that feeling of fear or worry or anxiety right here in the present moment. And you can just allow that feeling to be. Just allow it to be in the present moment and try to surrender to it. And if you're doing this effectively, you'll likely start to feel some relief, some energy in your body, some perhaps even euphoria. Now, if that's too much, if that's going too far, which it is for some people, other things would be more advantageous. But you tell me, was that helpful, or shall we go another route? I have many tricks up my sleeve. And I indeed hope to talk about more of this idea of going general throughout this stream, and how that ties into momentum and also the emotional scale itself. And we're just getting into sort of somewhat advanced territory here if you're like new to all this, but well, whatever. I will do my best to explain this as well as I can. Blurry again. I think I need to shift my vibration to attract a better webcam or something. Explain away. All right. So if you find difficulty in surrendering to the present moment and surrendering to that feeling of fear and stuff like that, wait, I got a discovery which I'm worried about, letting the cat out of the box about. I think poetic is fine. Oh no, we're blurry again. So are you saying you're like in a similar situation to Ryan then? Like sort of something that you don't want to have discovered? But yes, basically, if you find difficulty in surrendering to the present moment and surrendering to the feeling of the fear or the worry or the anxiety, I would say, first of all, keep practicing that, right? And fine. I like being fine. I think that's a good thing. Gave myself a haircut today. I don't know if you guys noticed. Is that what you're talking about? Anyway, so I know I'm kidding. I'm playing dumb, but so I would say continue practicing that surrender to the present moment, because in terms of momentum, what you're doing when you surrender, I believe, and when you are very present, is you're slowing that momentum way down. You're slowing it down so you can regain creative control over it. So continue just sort of practicing that on a regular basis. You know, whenever the fear or worry or anxiety comes up, just try to sort of be present with it. And this isn't something that can be really understood by the mind so much as it is something that you have to sort of intuitively get. And so if this doesn't make sense, just try to feel what I'm saying about this stuff about being in the present moment more than think about it. Like, you want to sort of enter this detached mental state where you just kind of step back in your mind and you just watch and observe things in the now. Just watch and observe the feeling, the whatever it is. And this should actually be a good time to do that because the moon is in Aquarius right now. So detached, mentally detached Aquarius. So it's good that we're talking about this tonight. But so yoga breathing techniques will work to keep my energy up. Ooh, that's cool. I think I've heard a little bit about that before, but I don't know a whole lot about that. But yeah, breath and like using breath there's like a lot of stuff you can do with that from what I've heard to help sort of stabilize your energy. So this whole being present and surrendering helps to slow down that momentum. However, there's another way that you can slow down the momentum if you're finding some difficulty with that. And that is this whole idea of going general. So to take your specific example where you're worried about an unwanted discovery, or actually let's start with the specifics, because that's always the issue really. When something is really challenging, it's because you're specifically focused upon it that it carries such weight and intensity. So the specific fear is your family might discover your memorabilia. So we want to soften that by talking about it in more general terms. We want to say, your family may discover something you don't want them to discover, or there are people in your life that may discover something that you don't want them to discover, or an unwanted discovery may be made. See how I'm going more and more general, less and less specific? This can take a little bit to wrap your mind around, but if you just stick with me, you'll get it. And so you can even go from this idea of saying an unwanted discovery might be made to an unwanted manifestation may happen. Something I don't want may happen. That's about as general as you can get. But now, from, you lost me there? So I don't know if I don't know if the stream cut out, or you mean like right, okay, connection lost. All right, well, I'm gonna back up a bit then, since I'm assuming I'm back now. Damn, there are more people that came in than they left, maybe because the connection. Oh well, whatever, fuck it. So you start off in this really specific place of saying, my family might discover this memorabilia, and then you want to change that, or you want to go general about that. You would want to say, my family might discover something that I don't want them to discover yet. And then you want to go more general about that. Saying like, there are people in my life who may discover something that I don't want them to discover. And then you want to go more general about that. Saying, there's an unwanted discovery that I'm worried may take place in my life. And then more general, saying, something unwanted may manifest. And then about as general as you can get, I'm worried that something I don't want might happen, or I'm worried that something I don't want might manifest. But now, from that place of very, very general negative focus, you want to shift that slightly. Now we're going to move up higher. This is like another emotional scale to general positive. And so you want to make really easy statements that are easy for your mind to agree with, like, well, at least it's not happening right now, and I don't have to worry about this right now, and things generally go well for me. Now, if you can't say that and believe it, then don't say that. And you can tell by the way you feel if you say something that you're not a match to. You'll start to feel the discord. So then you just back up and you look for other general good feeling thoughts, essentially. And you think, well, I have ways of coping with things. I have ways of dealing with things. You know, I am starting to believe that things work out for me. I'm starting to believe in my own power. I'm starting to believe in my own well-being. And from this very general, easy, general positive place, you then want to become more and more specific, but specifically positive. So stay with me. This is going to make a lot more sense here very soon. So you then start saying things like, and again, as long as you can agree with it and believe it, so I believe things are working out for me. I believe that I have creative control over my reality. I think that this is all going to go well. I think that this specific situation of people seeing things about me that are personal to me or whatever they are is going to happen when the time is right. I can see this specific situation unfolding in a way that is easy and pleasant and relatively stress-free for me to experience. And you get as specifically positive as you can. And it's this part of this process is a lot like going up the other emotional scale that I just went over, like getting to these vibrations of appreciation, love, and things of that nature. And so if you're able to, and again, only if you're able to, don't try to push yourself beyond what you're capable of right here, right now. But if you're able to say this and agree with it, say things like, well, I appreciate my family members, or I appreciate the power that I'm feeling by using this very process. I'm happy that my life is going well in the areas that it is going well in. There are many things about my life that I can appreciate, and get as specific as you can, specifically positive as you can, without contradicting the vibration, without going so far that you feel like you disagree with it. And if you do accidentally go too far, don't worry, you haven't like messed up or anything. You just back up from it and say other things that you can agree with. So now I'm going to explain basically what we've really done here in just a moment. Sorry, you guys had to hear that. I finished my monster. All right. So when you're going general here, this is like another emotional scale. It only has 4 levels, okay? The first that you start out on is specifically negative, specific and negative. And that is basically the area of most challenges or issues, as I was kind of saying earlier. So from specifically negative, you want to then go to generally negative, the level after that. You want to make all these general statements, but that are also still negative, like this sucks. That's a very good general negative statement. And then from general negative, you want to move to general positive. That's the 3rd level, general positive. And from there, finally, you want to move to specific and positive. So you got specifically negative, generally positive, specifically positive. And I can see you guys are enjoying your emojis. They're kind of like the different levels of, I'm just kidding. So that is essentially this idea of going general and how to use that to shift your vibration. And again, this, as I mentioned earlier at some point, this stuff that I'm going over tonight anyway, other than the idea of surrendering, that's something else, but this emotional scale and going general stuff is a result, or is stuff that is from Abraham Hicks, is what I'm trying to say, essentially. So, how are you guys doing with your little animals there in the chat? Your creatures, they look very happy. I bet they're feeling very generally positive. I can answer any questions at this point. I see that. It's quite the interesting language. I'm trying to decipher it. I'm trying to keep up with it, but I don't know. It seems to be beyond my intellect. But there's more I can say, but I want to give my voice a bit of a rest. So whether you guys have questions or not, I'm just gonna chill out for a bit. Yes, I feel like this live stream is or has been kind of all over the place, like with the early technical difficulties and everything, but hopefully when it is saved to my channel and anyone watches that copy, they will know to fast forward. I mentioned that a couple of times early on, so hopefully hopefully they get to the good stuff and don't just dismiss it outright. Tell you what the rest of my planets or signs are. You mean that you looked up your own stuff, or what are you saying? Because yeah, we can talk all about astrology if you want. Wait, notifications they removed. I was like, yeah, that's because I think I had to restart the stream like 3 times or something before things finally stabilized. So sorry about that. Like from now on, I'm going to do a test stream first. That'll be private, so I can make sure that it looks and sounds good. And then after that, once I start streaming, I'm always going to check it on my phone as well to make sure, like in another way, that it looks and sounds good. So we shouldn't have these issues again. Yes, definitely. So do you want to give me your birth date and time? Because I think you said June 1st, 1994. I can't recall for sure. And yeah, we can go through it as thoroughly as you want, basically. And maybe, if we're lucky, I can even try to tie in this discussion of astrology with this discussion of the emotional scale. That could be quite interesting. My camera is getting tricky. Let's see, I'm going to get planetwatcher.com, another window here. That emotional scale discussion was pretty intense. Wonder how people talk about this stuff all the time. Oh, cool. We got like your exact location and everything. Well, in that case, we can get quite in depth. Try to fix that. Let's see. I'm definitely glad that you found it worthwhile. I love how I literally have almost 6,000 Instagram followers that I sent this out to, but like hardly any of them showed up. Although at least Star-Lord showed up, so that was nice of him. Or maybe more people showed up and I just didn't notice, I don't know. But let's see here. So, June 1st, 1994, 4:30 p.m. Edmonton. My knowledge of Canada is a little bit limited. I'm going to see if I can. Hang on. Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know much about Canada, unfortunately. I need to become more culturally wise, but Canada has provinces, right? Like Edmonton is a city and a province in Canada. Like the province would be Alberta. Is that correct? I'm going to try to look it up on my phone. Provinces and territories, okay. I'm just going to find out the longitude and latitude on my phone just to make sure we get everything just right. Okay. Yeah, we're good to go. Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that years ago. Cannabis being legalized there. Damn, aren't you guys lucky? Wait, today was legalization? I thought it was. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. I don't know. But not that I've ever smoked weed before. But let's see here. Edmonton, Canada. Okay, we're gonna take a look, and since you're able to provide all this information, we're gonna find out your rising sign and everything here. This is gonna be awesome. And your houses. We're gonna know a lot about you now. It's kind of funny having all this, well, how do I say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm thinking that I'm way too smart or something, because really I'm not. I've only been studying astrology for almost 2.5 years, but it's interesting, like, knowing all this stuff about astrology that I've been able to sort of figure out by now, because all I need is someone's date of birth, and especially if I have their date of birth and time and exact location, I can know just huge amounts about their personality. So it's almost unfair. But then again, I had to study up for a long time to gain this knowledge. Wait, we're blurry. 2.5 years, rather impressive. Well, thank you. I'm glad you think so. I mean, all I do is follow my excitement to the best of my ability, and it keeps leading me to astrology. And so I expect this intensive study to continue for me. But anyway, all right, Ryan, let's take a look at your chart here. Well, the chat's not showing up for some reason. Okay, here we go. Wait, I wonder if I can do this. I want to see if the chat, I want to see if it gets blurry, but I don't know if I really can or not. Oh, well, whatever. I guess if it gets blurry and I don't notice it, you guys will have to let me know. So as we went over last time, your sun obviously is in Gemini and your moon is in Pisces. And so you got both of those energies going on. But what we didn't know last time that we are able to know this time is that you are a Libra rising. And interestingly enough, I too am a Libra rising. So hello, fellow Libra rising. And you've got that point at 16 degrees 35 minutes of Libra, so just over halfway through Libra. I have it at 2:23, I believe it is, of Libra, basically 2 degrees of Libra. So that, like, the rising sign, also known as the ascendant sign, is going to talk about largely how you are perceived by other people, like your outward self, whereas like your sun sign is going to be much more your true self. But your sun sign being Gemini is also an air sign. So both Gemini and Libra being air signs, they have a lot in common. And so you've got a lot of that air energy just from that, basically. And air is all about the mental world, all about logical thinking. And Libra in particular is about seeing things from a balanced perspective, reaching for balance and harmony, being diplomatic. People with a lot of Libran energy are typically very loving and sweet and nice, and they try to sort of balance out for others around them. Now, some of this may or may not be counteracted by other aspects of your chart, but see things from both sides. Yes, exactly. That is a classic Libran trait, is to try to be very objective and see both sides of anything. And in fact, in tarot, Libra rules the Justice card. which indeed is all about justice, about objectivity, about seeing things as they are, about weighing both sides and things of that nature. So, and again, it's an air sign. It's all about the mental world and stuff like that. So let me see what your sort of primary modalities are, which I'll explain that in a moment. Let's see. You've got, in terms of mutable, you've got 1, 2, still a 2. Where is your Jupiter? There it is. Still at 2, 3. Once we get to your Saturn. And okay, you've got 3 mutable points in your chart, basically. And this could be quite significant because that's your Sun and Moon and Saturn. And if you have the Sun and Moon in both mutable signs, then you're going to be much more compatible with that energy. So Gemini Sun, Pisces Moon, both mutable signs. That means changeable. That means more flowing, less rigid, more open to change and perhaps even new ideas and things of that nature. We lost connection. Okay. Did you miss anything important, or should I just continue? Basically, what I was saying is mutable signs are all about changeability, and both your Sun and Moon are in mutable signs as well as your Saturn, so you might have a significant amount of that, I would say. Now, as for your rising sign, that's in cardinal, so let's just see how much you have of that modality. 1, 2, 3. Still at 3. Still at 3. Okay, you've got 3 cardinal points on your chart. Those being your Mercury, Venus, and where to go? Or no, actually, wait, you've got more. I'm still familiarizing myself with your chart. Where the hell was that other one? Now, you basically got 4 cardinal points on your chart, and that's Mercury, Venus, Neptune, and Uranus. And so we won't get too much into that, but basically cardinal energy is the energy that is willing to start things and shows leadership and stuff like that. And so, 4 points of that, you got a fairly strong dose of that. Also, you do have Chiron, which we don't always sort of talk about, but it's still quite significant in astrology, or I guess a lot of astrologers talk about it. I don't even know, but you do have Chiron in Virgo, which is a mutable sign as well, and so that's some more of that changeable energy. And as for fixed signs, you have 1 and 2, 3, 4, if we count your north node. So fixed signs, fixed energy is all about sticking to the plan and stuff like that. So you're quite balanced in the area of well, cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. So hard to really say what what you would be most prone to, other than with your sun and moon both being in mutable signs. I'd say probably prone to changeability more than anything, but you have a lot of energy in the other areas as well. But anyway, let's get into more perhaps tactile stuff. So your Mercury, we're just going to go through the planets now. Your Mercury is in Cancer. So even though you're a Gemini sun and Pisces moon, you're going to think more like a Cancer does, a Cancerian. Mercury is thoughts, words, communication. And Cancer is all about deep emotional feeling, deep emotional meaning, also about security, order and structure to a significant extent, with it being the fourth sign and what 4 relates to in astrology. Let's see what else I'm going to say about that. It may make you prone to worry, but that may or may not be canceled out by some other points in your chart. But you're going to think like a Cancerian does. So you're going to have that sort of deep emotional aspect to your thoughts and communication. Your Venus is also in Cancer, and so your likes and dislikes are going to be connected to Cancerian things. So again, like deep emotional things, deep emotional meaning, things of that nature, maybe even sensitivity, either liking, like being attracted to sensitive people, perhaps, or maybe you feel sensitive about things yourself. It could go a couple of ways, especially with Mercury also being in Cancer. Let's see here. Mars in Taurus is going to have your willingness to take action, being all about sort of sticking to the plan and being very determined and very almost stubbornly focused whenever you're working on something or taking some kind of action. And let's see, Jupiter in Scorpio, very interesting placement. That is going to be all about a magnification of the deep, dark realms, the dark side of life. You're going to have a, how should we say this, a predisposition to focusing on the dark side of life with Jupiter and Scorpio, especially the idea of getting to the truth of things, getting to what really matters, things of this nature. And then your Saturn is also in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces, my knowledge is somewhat limited about. Could always do a Google search at some point, though. Maybe we will. But basically, to my understanding, Saturn in Pisces, like Saturn is weakened in Pisces because Saturn's all about like structure and stability and control and stuff like that. And Pisces is almost the opposite. It's about being very flowing and fluid and emotional and intuitive. But you know what? I'm not going to say anything more than that yet about Saturn and Pisces because I don't want to accidentally say the wrong thing. Maybe we'll look up some more stuff about that later. But let's see here. Can be very stubborn. So where should we go next? Oh, all charts are complicated, basically. Well, actually, I'll open it up to you for a bit. Like, do you have any questions about your chart or about your life or your personality? Because there's so much data in front of me right now that if you wanted to know about like anything in particular in your life, I can probably give you some astrological insight into it fairly easily. Oh, wow, it's 1 a.m. already. I've been streaming for over 2 hours. Going through my past, I remember one person who I still talk to. Do you have like a question about that? 10 p.m. there. Yeah, that's one of the convenient things, I guess, about living on the East Coast is it's like so many people on the internet are on the West Coast, like in California, mainly, I guess. And so even when it gets really late here, a lot of times the internet will still be an active place because of largely people on the West Coast, like thanks to people on the West Coast. So then I guess it might be a bit of a disadvantage living over there. Like once it becomes like 1 a.m. there, it would be 4 a.m. here, and like mostly everyone's asleep, except for people like me, you know, creatures of the night. Let's see here. Said to me once when we both were homeless at the time, Brian, sometimes you're childish, but over time you're very mature, and I can't handle that. Why is this happening? Sometimes you're very childish, but over times you are very mature, and I can't handle that. Well, that fits your astrology perfectly, as far as I can tell, because your Gemini sun is going to make you predisposed towards a certain curious playfulness that may be taken as a sort of childish personality by some people. However, these other placements, like your Pisces moon, could have you having more of an air of maturity. And let me see if there's anything else going along with that. Mars and Taurus is a fairly mature, I would say, aspect. I collect rubber ducks, but I listen to death metal. Sounds about accurate. Let's see. Well, interestingly enough, let's just go down this route and see where it gets us. So we were talking, I think just last night, about this idea that Saturn represents Satan. Well, when you look at your Saturn in your chart, like I said, it's in Pisces, and there are some interesting aspects to it, including a harmonious trine from your Jupiter in Scorpio. So if we sort of look at this intuitively, we could say, because Jupiter is the magnifying glass, and it magnifies anything and everything it touches. So when your Jupiter is trining your Saturn, which it indeed is in your chart, it's magnifying your Saturn traits, your Saturnian traits, to use that word again. And so one theoretical interpretation of that is when we say, oh, well, Saturn is Satan, we could, in fact, I think quite plausibly say that your Jupiter is magnifying your satanic, literally satanic aspects and traits. And so I think that's very interesting. But it goes even further than that because, you know, lots of people can have Jupiter trine Saturn. But you don't just have Jupiter trine Saturn. Jeez, I sound like I don't know what right now. But, well, you have multiple aspects to Saturn, but the next, like, really big one that jumps out at me is that your Venus in Cancer is also in a trine to your Saturn, and only about 2 degrees away from a perfect trine to your Saturn. And so Venus is what we like and dislike. Well, when there's a harmonious aspect from Venus to another planet, that's like saying we like those things that that other planet represents. So Venus trine Saturn is like saying you like Saturn things. You like literally satanic things, basically speaking. And let's see. You have, to kind of give an aside here, you have an interesting placement where you not quite, but almost have what would be a grand water trine. But what's happening here in your chart is your Mercury at 4 of Cancer is trining your Jupiter at 6 of Scorpio, which is trining your Saturn at 12 of Pisces, which is trining your Venus at 14 of Cancer, only 10 degrees away from your Mercury in Cancer. So you almost have a grand water trine. In fact, if you used a wide enough orb in your chart, which is how wide, what counts for an aspect, it could be said that you do have a grand water trine, and it's involving Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn, which again is Satan, essentially. So you have all of that going on, all this, these powerful aspects to Saturn, but it goes even deeper than that. And I'm trying to decide which part here to describe next. So I think the most interesting one, and this could get into a whole discussion of I don't know what. Yeah, this might go down a whole other rabbit hole, we'll see. But your Saturn is in a half square with your Neptune. Now, let me tell you something very interesting, or at least I find it very interesting. I think you will find it very interesting as well. I think everyone will. Simply put, if in astrology Saturn is Satan, Neptune would be God. And we lost connection literally right when I was saying something really interesting. Well, in case you missed that, I'll repeat. Simply put, in astrology, if Saturn is Satan, then Neptune is God. So just let that sink in. Like did you hear that clearly? Because I want to make sure that was heard, because this is like a huge point for what I'm about to say next. Saturn is Satan and Neptune is God, metaphorically speaking, sort of. Hey, Christopher. I'm glad to see you back. I missed the part before that. I missed when you brought up Neptune. Okay. What I said basically was just that the Saturn, your Saturn in your chart, is in a half square to your Neptune. So in astrology, we have three main stressful aspects. They are oppositions, squares, and half squares. Oppositions are the least stressful, squares are like medium stressful, and half squares are the most stressful of all. And so what you have in your chart is literally this most stressful of tension between your Saturn and your Neptune. But let me zero in on something, because I don't want to say this incorrectly. I want to figure out how many degrees that is with greater precision. Let's see. 12 of Pisces to 12 of Aquarius plus 15 would be 27. Okay, I'm going to make a slight correction. You have a half square from your Saturn to Neptune within a wider orb than is typically used. So admittedly, the aspect isn't very strong between your Saturn and Neptune. However, Uranus is only 3 degrees from your Neptune. And if we go from your Saturn to your Uranus, that's a half square within, let me just make sure I'm not saying anything incorrect. Wait, I hope I didn't mess up the other thing. I don't know. This chart's confusing. I'm just kidding. Sometimes when it comes to little details like this, I can still make mistakes. That's why I'm being so careful. I want to make sure that I'm not giving you the wrong information. In fact, I'm going to pull this up in another window. That should make it easier here to tell. Talking June 1st, 1994. Simplify things. Okay, this is much easier. So 12 and then 27. Okay, yeah, basically what I'm saying is within a bit of an orb, like a 2-degree orb, sorry if this doesn't make sense, but geez, how do I say this? Like, oh yeah, no problem. Thank you for such a nice comment. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Your Saturn is in a half square to your Uranus. Now, this would be perfect at 27 of Capricorn. Your Uranus is at 25 of Capricorn. That's still close enough to count. Now, your Neptune is only 3 degrees away from that at 22 of Capricorn. So it is difficult to say for sure how much there truly is a half square between your Saturn and Neptune, but my theory is that it's still quite applicable, especially because Neptune absorbs anything it touches, basically. It absorbs, reflects, and amplifies. So your Neptune is essentially conjunct to your Uranus within about 3 degrees. So if your Saturn, this is my theory about your chart, if your Saturn is half square to your Uranus within 2 degrees, and your Uranus is conjunct to your Neptune within 3 degrees, then your Saturn could also be said to be in an effective half square with your Neptune, with this Neptune-Uranus conjunction. Now, why the hell does all this matter? Why am I going through such painstaking efforts to say this just right? Well, let me explain why. Because a half square is an area of extreme tension or challenge, or at the very least moderate tension or challenge. And so in your chart, you have Saturn, the planet of Satan, in conflict with Neptune, the planet of God. And again, I don't mean these in literal terms. I mean them sort of allegorically. A stress ball just popped on you. That does sound messy and sticky and unwanted. I hope you are okay. But so my theory is that, and again, this is just a theory. It's up to you whether you want to agree with it or not. My theory is that you incarnated with this specific aspect because you wanted to explore this idea of the satanic side of things versus the, God or spiritual, as in spiritual in the classic sense of the word, I guess, side of things. This God in the sense of like oneness with everything. You wanted to explore this theme of those opposing points of view or opposing energies, basically. I'm going to wash my pants still. I'll catch you guys later. I guess it sounds like it made a mess. That sucks. But all right, Panic. Thanks for watching, Mister. I'll see you later. It's been great having you here. So that's the Saturn Neptune square here, basically. But with the Uranus addition, so your Uranus is conjunct your Neptune. Well, Uranus is all about radical thought, like free thinking thought. You know, Uranus is the rebel. Uranus is the nonconformist. Uranus is the one who doesn't go along with things, essentially, doesn't go along with the norm. And so my theory personally about your chart is that your Uranus-Neptune conjunction is manifesting in such a way, and remember, this is also, your Uranus is also square to your Saturn, like your Neptune is. My theory is that it's manifesting as rebellion, basically. And one way to, I think, well, let me say that correctly. Not necessarily rebellion in the classic sense of the word, but it's manifesting for you as an unconventional way of thought or belief system or something like that. You know, it's manifesting for you as this Saturn / satanic sort of perspective on things. Because again, Uranus is the free thinker, Uranus is the nonconformist, Uranus is the one who stands out, etc., etc. So I think what has happened is the way that you've gone about resolving those energies is by the sort of, I guess, satanic, you know, in a sense, perspectives that you found. And in the meantime, this conflict between Saturn, Satan, and Neptune, God, still serves you because it facilitates the theme of what you chose to explore. So I hope all that makes sense. If it doesn't, just say so and I'll try to explain more in depth. Sounds similar to what I've done in the past, honestly. I've always been seen as that odd kid / person by my peers, even today in the present with my coworkers. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, especially since, I mean, we've got more than this to your Uranus. You know, we've got your Pluto in a harmonious sextile to your Uranus, your North Node, which is going to talk about your life purpose, in a harmonious sextile to your Uranus and Neptune, basically speaking. We've got the Sun, which represents your ego, in a sesquisquare to your Uranus. So that's a little bit of a challenging way to sort of, that basically says you're likely to be different, but your being different is going to be a challenge to you, especially to your ego, your interaction with physical reality, and it's something that could become sort of, it's almost like in the background, but it sort of can fester over time, or, you know, it's a subtle challenging aspect, basically. And at least for the points I have displayed here, that's it. Which actually I should turn on the ascendant and midheaven points for you as well, so we can get even more in-depth information. I'm going to do that right now. What did Chris say? Yes, I do. I love to hear my astrology chart and personalities. I'm going to dress Mr. Chris myself all out, right? Fancy and flamboyant. I was born on January 20th, 1974. Okay, cool. Yeah, we will look at your chart next year once we've gone through Ryan's quite thoroughly. So I'm going to change what we have here to more points, and we're going to pull up your chart again. And oh boy, things just got a lot more interesting from what I can see here. But on that note, hopefully that's a bit of a cliffhanger. I've got to go use the bathroom, so I'll be right back, you guys. Give me just a moment or two. Was my squeaking door loud enough for you guys? All right. Let's see here. If you're interested in hearing about Chris too, continue following my chart cliffhanger. How suspenseful. Yes, indeed. We will look at both of you guys. Maybe we could even go back and forth, since there's so much you can get into with anyone's chart basically. But so what I was able to basically reveal here by looking at your, I guess you could say a more full version of your chart, is, first of all, and I forgot to mention this earlier, you have your midheaven in Cancer, which your midheaven is going to talk about stuff relating to career. And so your career, or like main focus in life, is likely going to have to do with Cancerian things. So again, we have this idea of the deep emotional meaning, the order and structure, a feeling of wanting to be secure. So I guess there's a lot of things that could sort of fall in that category, but it is, I don't know how I have that ability. I guess I just do. So yeah, your midheaven's in Cancer. Now, interestingly enough, so we're going to talk about your career here for a bit, or what would be like a likely career for you, what you're drawn to for a career, stuff like that. Your midheaven is in an opposition with your Uranus-Neptune conjunction. And so this means, basically speaking, that I would say either your likely career in this life is one that is most unusual, like Uranus talks about, and or your career life might be filled with a lot of unexpected developments, basically speaking. And it's interesting because Cancer, where you have your midheaven, wants security, and Uranus is all about shaking things up, and this is in opposition. And so maybe your desire is to find security because of this feeling of things being shaken up, whether real or imagined, basically. Now, we also have, when we look at your midheaven, bounced around from a few industries. Interesting. Well, there you go. When we look at your midheaven, we have a grand water trine, and let's see, let me get this exactly right. It's going from more points than just 3. It's going from your midheaven to your north node and Pluto, first of all. So your career and sort of central focus in life is going to be tied into Pluto, so sort of deep, dark, powerful things, the idea of power and all or nothing. This is also going to be connected to your life purpose. So you're likely to find, again, this is just a theory, but I would say, looking at this chart, you're likely to find a career that indeed is all about your life purpose, whether you found it by now or you find it at some point in the future. And then both your North Node and Pluto are trine to your moon in Pisces, which itself is trine to your midheaven, and that's how we have this 3-way grand water trine. And so, actually, it's interesting that you say that you've bounced around from a few industries, because the moon trining your midheaven would also be theoretically indicative of that, because the moon is quite unstable as well. Like, the moon is our mood, and it's the fastest moving object that we track in the zodiac, and so it's always changing. It's always sort of searching for security, and that's probably part of why it rules the sign of Cancer, which just so happens to be the sign that your midheaven is in. So it's not a surprising thing when you've got the moon trine your midheaven and Uranus Neptune opposite your midheaven that you've experienced some instability and some changeability when it comes to your career. Now, let me see if there's anything else major that we should mention here. Let's see, your ascendant is in a half square with your Chiron, a square with your Venus, and a trine with your Sun. I think if we're going to go over all this, because there's so many details we could get into, but well, I would need to look up more about this to be completely sure of this, but I believe, from what I've seen so far in astrology, that having your ascendant in a trine with your Sun means that your outward expression of yourself and your ego or sense of self are likely to work together very well because it is indeed a harmonious trine. So there's a lot of room for inner harmony in that area. And again, that's between, in particular, your sense of self or ego and your sort of outward expression of yourself, your Libran ascendant. So let me see if there's anything else major I want to point out before we proceed. Might need to eat at some point and then come back, which hopefully tonight I actually do come back. I often say that and then I don't, but hopefully tonight would be different. Let's see. You have a Sun-Saturn square, but we should probably save that for another time. You've got Jupiter directly opposite your Mars, and so theoretically that would mean that there's at least a part of you that really wants to take a lot of action when it comes to things, but it might be difficult to get your action to harmonize with your sense of optimism or positive thinking or expansion or knowledge, if that makes sense. It might be difficult. What could we say about this? It might even manifest as like a challenge in believing in your taking action or believing in the action that you are taking. Being able to think positively about the action that you are taking, essentially. It's very true. Interesting. I love these situations where I say things and I literally am just reading the astrology. I have no idea if it matches the person or not. And every time everyone's like, that sounds exactly like me. So interesting. But anyway, let me go over your houses real quick. Not everything, but just a cursory sort of glance. Because that's always very interesting. And see, we only have your houses information because you're able to provide your exact birth time and location. So this is pretty awesome here, actually. So you have Jupiter in your first house, which first house is about the self, essentially. So Jupiter in the first house, a lot of your attention might be on yourself. You might be sort of prone to belief systems because Jupiter's belief systems that are like about the self, like about maybe even being selfish. And I guess in a way I'm kind of cheating here because I do believe from what I've read of Satanism, that it like puts like the self first or whatever. It's sort of a selfish perspective, if I'm recalling correctly. But regardless, that does show up in your astrology. Jupiter in the first house, a magnification and focus on and belief system about yourself, and maybe even being sort of quote unquote selfish. Fairly true too. Yeah. And remember, like I said earlier, not only that, but Jupiter itself is trine to your Saturn, so Satan. So very indicative energy there. And as for your Saturn, it is in your 5th house, as is your moon. Don't believe in me, believe in yourself. Interesting, yeah. That sounds like what I'm looking at here, essentially. So, without going into a lot of detail, actually, maybe we should save this for another time, because Saturn in the 5th and also the moon in the 5th could get into a lot of stuff. But yeah, we'll just save that for another time. Let's see here. Let me look at these aspects to Pluto, because that's always very powerful. Uranus and Neptune in the 4th. Well, I believe that Uranus in the 4th can often be an indicator of sort of an unstable home environment, perhaps especially when growing up. But I'm not sure. I'd have to look that one up. You have Mars in the 7th, which could be an indicator of being very aggressive and assertive when it comes to partnerships, and also when it comes to any sort of open enemies, 7th house of open enemies or public enemies. Homeless by choice, the age of 19. Interesting. Let's see. Ooh, this one is fascinating. You have your sun in the 8th house. The 8th house, which corresponds to the sign of Scorpio, the 8th house, which is all about dark things, the dark side of life. It's about position for myself financially. Interesting you say that, because the 8th house is also about money, although, well, the 2nd house is about mainly your money, which you have Pluto and the North Node in, and the 8th house is about, generally speaking, other people's money as well as business, where you have your sun at. And the 8th house is also the house of secrets. The 8th house of secrets, meaning that if you have your sun there, a lot of your focus is on sort of dark, hidden stuff, even stuff like what we're talking about now. And I think Satanism would also qualify. Pretty much anything occult would qualify. I personally have my moon in my 8th house, and my theory is that that is one of the main reasons that I even have such a strong interest in all of this sort of occult stuff, astrology and vibration and attraction and the laws of the universe, the mysteries of the universe, all this stuff. So I think for you it's probably similar, but it is the sun, and maybe we can look more into that another time, like look up more information on it on stream actually and see what comes up. Let's see here. Mercury and Venus in the 9th. This could manifest, theoretically, as thoughts that are a lot about beliefs and ideals, and also going far, both literally and metaphorically. So I'm talking like long distance travel here. Venus in the 9th would also be a love of long distance travel, a love of sort of exploring belief systems, a love of idealism, perhaps even the imagination. I'm not 100% sure about that, but quite possibly. things of that nature. Oh wow, yeah, what you just described really sounds a lot like Uranus opposite your midheaven, like and also Moon trine your midheaven. A lot of stuff like that happening. Let's see, you've got Chiron in your 11th house, which means that, see, it's also in Virgo. Well, one theory about this, Chiron is a bit more nebulous to me, but one theory I would have about this is Chiron in the 11th is like you heal your own wounds by sort of group efforts or helping to heal the wounds of groups or like people that you network with, or even like social networking and stuff like that. I don't even know if that makes sense, but that's sort of the best I can describe it when combining those energies. So let's see here. So I think what we can do, because I'm beginning to get really hungry. Chris, we can begin to look at your chart, but I think after a bit I'm going to need to get off and go get something to eat. But as long as I have the energy, I will come back later once I'm done eating, and we'll do another stream and we'll look deeper into all of these matters. Enjoy going on hours-long bicycle trips, even drive a total of 180 kilometers working back from. Wow, that's pretty crazy. I mean, actually, funny thing though, your being a Gemini will predispose you to short-term travel, like short-distance travel, but then having that 9th house activity will also predispose you to long-distance travel, basically. All right, so let's see, January 28th, 1974. Let's just plug that in real quick. You wouldn't happen to know your exact birth time, Chris? If not, it's okay, but if you do, we can sort of get more specific. So, wait, let me just calculate one other thing. Okay, so born around midnight. Interesting. I'll just put midnight on here. Well, wait, I have to get some sleep. Seeing how it's almost midnight, but I don't leave the chat. I just kind of close my eyes, drift off to sleep. Okay, that's all right, Ryan. Thank you for watching, and thank you for leaving the stream open. That helps me get more views, watch time, whatever. So helps me out. Thank you. Thanks very much, sir. But as for Chris, so you are, of course, an Aquarius sun. That's your sun sign. You're almost certainly an Aries moon, unless the information here is slightly off. You might be a Pisces moon, but you're almost certainly an Aries moon. So your Aquarius sun is going to have you being prone to a sort of intellectual detachment from things a lot of times. Maybe you're not so prone to being overly caught up in emotion, and your Aries moon is going to make you one who is very action-oriented, very much a go-getter, and this underlies your motivations in life, essentially. So sort of subconsciously, you have a lot of drive, a lot of ambition, and you're very much a go-getter. You're willing to take risks and stuff like this, things of this nature. Especially also with your having Chiron in Aries. That might be a way that you sort of heal your own wounds, like without getting really deep into that. Let's see. Yeah, thanks so much, Ryan, and you're very welcome. I hope you enjoy it on your way to work. That's so cool. I love it when people like watch the replay or whatever, or the saved version of the stream. The streams, I absolutely love it. So back to Chris's chart here. You have an interesting Mercury-Jupiter conjunction in Aquarius, which is going to amplify your thinking, basically speaking, your thinking abilities, your words, your communication. It's going to make you very communicative, very talkative, most likely. It's going to make you have a very active mind and perhaps think very big, think about big things, think about belief systems, things of this nature. And what else can we say about that? Just having Mercury in Aquarius alone, an air planet and an air sign, is intense because it's going to make your mind very active, but also having Jupiter conjunct it is just going to make that even bigger. So I would suspect that you have a very active mind that is then even further enforced by your having the Sun in Aquarius. And I see you also have Venus in Aquarius, which means that your interests and your likes and dislikes, especially your likes, the things you like in life, are likely to be very unique, very different. And you also are likely to show affection in very unique ways, essentially. So let's see. Interestingly enough, you also have Mars in Taurus, just like Ryan does. So when you take action, you're very sort of, what's the word? Like consistent and hardworking, and like if it manifests like that, at least very determined. You're not going to stop. You're sticking to the plan whenever you're taking action, essentially. You have Saturn opposite your North Node, meaning that something to do with a conflict, perhaps, with order and structure, maybe even authority, could tie into your life purpose in this life. That's very interesting. Perhaps we can explore that more at a later time, when we can dig into it more. That would be very fascinating to explore. You have a Uranus-Saturn trine, which could manifest one of two ways, I think. Either it's going to shake up the order and structure in your life, or it's going to help bring some stability to the sort of otherwise tumultuous or unstable energy in your life. Maybe a mix of both, even. Actually, unique ways, acute ways. You're very right. I do have lots of affection on people and children and family. Interesting. Yeah, I would say so from what I'm seeing here in your chart. What else do we have? Your Sun is trine to your Pluto, which your Pluto you have in Libra. So Sun-Pluto trine means that you're very much about shining the light of your awareness into the darkness. Basically speaking, you would probably be a good candidate for doing shadow work. You're aware of power and power dynamics. You may be quite the all or nothing person, especially with your Aries moon. And you may be prone to highly transformative, like once in a lifetime experiences. Also, with your Sun sextile to Neptune, I would say that's going to tie you in a lot with the creative realm, the spiritual realm, the mystical realm, the imagination, things of this nature, even like otherworldly stuff, but in a very positive way, because it is a harmonious sextile. So let's see here. Unstable energy, you're right. People hurt my feelings in the past many times past for no reason. Yeah, that can happen. You got Uranus in Libra there, and it is somewhat in a square with your sun, which is like your ego or conscious mind, your sense of self. Um, yeah, I definitely want to dig into all this stuff a lot more with you and anyone else who ends up watching. But my voice is like dying right now, and I'm getting hungry, so I'm gonna need to take a break. I will try to come back later after I'm done eating, maybe in like an hour, hour and a half, give my voice some time to recover. Uh, and hopefully you're still available. Maybe some other people could find this and we can go over this some more. Um, but like if you can't stay awake for that or whatever, if you have to go to sleep or anything, that's fine too. Like if no one shows up for a stream, I'll just mark the video private or whatever, or delete it or something. So don't worry about me. If you're able to show up, that's fine. If not, literally don't worry about it. It's perfectly okay. You stay up all night. Okay, cool. Well then, here's the plan. I'm gonna go get something to eat, and then as long as I still have the energy, I'll come back and we'll dig even deeper into your chart and see what we can find out. So does that sound good? It sounds good to me. So let me just glance at my phone here real quick. All right. Well then, thank you for watching. Thank you, Ryan, for watching. Thank you, Panic, who was watching earlier, also known as Asher, as you told me the other night. Thanks to everyone. I love doing this. I love having you guys here. I love live streaming. It's so cool. It's so much fun. And hopefully I'll be seeing at least one of you, at least Chris, here in another hour or two or so. Maybe some more people if we're lucky. And if not, then hope you have a really good night. See you soon, hopefully.